Hi guys, my name's Doug. Welcome to my messy garage. In the last video on my air compressor modifications, we mounted an intercooler to the side of the unit. We've got some nice 1-inch square tubing mounts. Everything's bolted down nice and tight, ready to go. However, we didn't do any plumbing. In today's video, we're going to mount the intercooler condensate trap, and we're going to plumb it into the compressor head and plumb it down into the top of the tank here. Another item that we've got to do is come up with a source of 12 volt power to run the fan. Fortunately, I have an outlet right here. Probably could use an outlet cover on that. Probably get that done today too. The other item that we need to do is attach a condensate trap and pressure regulator to the output of the air compressor, and we'll attach that to the wall here. You can see there's a couple of holes in the drywall where an old one was attached. Anyways, follow along. Thanks a lot for stopping by, and hopefully you enjoy this one. Step one for this little project is going to be disconnecting the feed line that comes out of the compressor head, goes into the top of the tank. It is, I'm going to guess that's a 3/8 line that's on there right now, and I'm going to be upsizing that to 1/2 inch. That's what I ordered in. We'll run 1/2 inch to the inlet that I'm going to use for the intercooler. We'll come out of this, do kind of a loop around, and come into the top of the condensate trap. Out of the condensate trap, I'm going to run 3/8 and then go into the top of the compressor tank down here, so that we don't have to change any of the size of the fittings down there. I believe there's a check valve in there that prevents the tank from exhausting back through the head of the compressor. This small line, I believe it's 1/8 inch or maybe 1/4 inch, comes off the head and goes into the pressure switch. I think it's a bleed back, lets the pressure out of the pressure switch. Under here we have the feed that comes out of the tank and allows the pressure switch to know what the pressure is. Let me put you on a stand and we'll start tearing some of this apart. We'll get this aluminum pressure feed taken off here. I can see we're going to run into a small problem here. This is essentially using a compression fitting, which is not what I have in the way of parts. However, we can probably get that at a local hardware store. This compression fitting that is on here I plan on removing and replacing with a AN8 aluminum fitting, and I'm hoping I might have to go compression to go back into the top of the tank. But that is step 10 and we're on step 1. Here's the adapter that came out of the head of the compressor. This is our AN8 adapter. It's got a 1/2 inch pipe thread on one end and 1/2 inch AN fitting on the other. It's a 37-degree flare, and we'll get into this a little bit later. This could cause you guys some trouble if you're going to try and repeat what I'm doing here. You might have to use some different components. Wrapped a little bit of Teflon tape around there. Of course, I got grubby fingers, so the white Teflon tape's a little grubby, but that's okay. It's still going to work. This is the aluminum tube that I'm going to use for plumbing the compressor head to the intercooler, and it's actually 1/2 inch fuel line from an airplane. I got it from Aircraft Spruce. So what I'm going to do is bring it along. I'm going to put a nice 90-degree bend and leave enough slack that we can put a 180-degree bend in and bring it back up into the compressor head. We'll have to leave a little bit of extra tubing that we'll trim off to get it to line up exactly where we want it. I'm going to guess that is about where we want the bend to be. Another problem that I have here is that I don't have a 1/2 inch tubing bender. So we're going to have to use the one that I've got, which only goes up to 3/8, but I think it'll work regardless. Tubing bender, it's got a nice anvil that goes in between these two posts and forces the tube to bend. And as you can see, there are notches here for the different size tubes. We'll just use the largest one and it should support the tube well enough that we can get a decent bend on it. And you just tighten it. Brings the tube around, but provides enough support that we don't end up kinking the line. It's not a perfect bend. It did misshapen a little bit, kind of squashed it down to fit the 3/8 die and put a couple of dings in it there, but it is still more than adequate size to let air through, as the original was only 3/8. So this shouldn't cause any restriction. Here's our pipe. You can kind of see the mandrel. I'm not real happy with that, but it'll work. The rest of these I hand formed. You got to be careful when you're hand forming the soft aluminum tubing, because it tends to want to kink off. But I think everything will be fine here. And we're going to use some aircraft flare fittings, just because it works well with this tubing. First thing we've got to remember to do, though, is we've got to put the nut on, and we've got to put the flare backing on. It's easy to forget to do that. Now we've got our end here. First off, I'm going to deburr this. It's got a little bit of a burr on the inside, and then I'm going to clean it up with a file, because we don't want to have any sharp edges here, because when this flares out, of course, it will be stretching the aluminum, and if there's a sharp edge, it will cause a crack. Take a swivel deburring tool. Run it around the inside. That's good. We'll do this end while I'm at it. Let me take the file. Polish up the end, a little bit more deburring. We'll take the fittings, put them on the other end so that we don't forget. Nothing's worse than getting a perfect flare made and then realizing you forgot to put the nut on. This is the what Aircraft Spruce calls the economical flaring tool. I think it's 70, 80 bucks, something like that. And you've got dies in here that we can rotate for the different size tubing. Of course, we're dealing with 1/2 inch right now, so we set both the top and the bottom die to 1/2 inch. We have a lever here that you can see. It acts as a stop, goes over top of where the tube goes in, and it stops the tube from going too far in. Put this in here up against the stop. Got to be careful that we stay lined up with the stop. Bring the top die down so that it clamps the tube. So I don't know how well that's showing up on camera, but the this little wing that sticks out where the tube is up against that, and we are clamped. As we close the wing nut here, it swings back out of the way. When we swing this wing nut back out of the way, stop flips back, and then we tighten it down, and we are holding the tube just far enough up so that we can flare it out. As you can see, there's kind of a rounding effect to this, and it actually will polish the inside of the flare. We give it a little shot of, it just happens to be liquid wrench that I have. Just with some lubricant. And we bring it down. Definitely double check, make sure we got our nut and our backer. We tighten this. Flares. Snug. Now, as we back this out, it is going to turn this and polish it, but the threads aren't actually going to start to disengage till we've made probably about a full turn. So we're not disengaging, we're not disengaging. Now we are. We come back. Undo the clamp. And there is a nice flare. Let me repeat that on the other end, and then we'll attach this to the compressor. Got it attached. One trick when using these AN fittings is you kind of have to make sure that you're going on straight. If you aren't quite perfectly straight, they get a little grumpy about starting. But definitely with having as much slack on here as I did, I was able to get those snugged up absolutely no problem. Next step in our little project here is going to be mounting the condensate trap, something like that. It's going to be a little tricky to get the airline to go from the downward facing fitting on the radiator to the upward facing fitting on the condensate trap, but I think we'll be able to get it. Of course, I'm marking it with a black Sharpie on black paint, but basically I think we want our center punch to be right about there. We'll take the deburring tool and we'll clean up in behind. Put our 5/16 bolt in here. Nicely snugged up. It would be nice if that had a second spot that we could use to mount at the bottom. Unfortunately, it only has the one tab on it. But it's nice and easy to get at. Down here is the drain, so we'll have to crack that open every once in a while and drain the water out. Here's essentially what we're trying to accomplish. Everybody's seen one of these pipe cutters before, I'm sure. You kind of snug it up, turn it around, snug it up a little more, and eventually it cuts all the way through. We'll have to do a little bit of tweaking here to clear this motor, but I think for the most part we've got what we need here. Let me go clean these ends up and put the flares on, and I'll bring you back when I have this attached. Now this is going to be a little tricky just to get it around the motor. Again, we've got to make sure that this comes on fairly straight, or it doesn't tighten in place properly and it doesn't seal. I don't know how well that is showing up for you guys, but there is a little bit of space between the motor. Make a little more. There we are. And the tube, they shouldn't come in contact. Now we are out to the outlet of the condenser, and this is where things are going to get a little tricky. I was under the impression that we were using a AN fitting. These kind of look like AN fittings when they were attached, but they are indeed compression fittings. And of course, I don't have another compression fitting, and I don't think we can salvage the furrow off of here to make it work. I do have 3/8 fuel line, which this is 3/8 pipe thread here, and obviously we're going to have to convert that over. I've kind of come up with a bit of a plan. We're going to reuse a portion of the original fill tube. It's 3/8 tubing. This fitting is for 3/8 tubing, and so what we'll do is we'll flare it, attach it to this 90-degree elbow that has flare fittings on both sides. We'll come out of that, feed through here, and go down to the condensate trap right there. And most of this will use the aircraft 3/8 fuel line that I have, rather than using this. We'll just use a minimal amount of this original stuff. That way, if we have to reuse another fitting, we've still got some length left. Let me fabric cobble some stuff, and I'll bring you guys back when I'm ready to install this on the compressor. We've got our adapted piece of aluminum tubing that came off of the compressor originally. We'll snug up that compression fitting. Hopefully it's not going to leak. If it does, we can get a new one easily enough. To attach the outlet of our condensate trap to the top of the compressor, we've got to put a reducer. And yes, I know this is a galvanized fitting, and I don't really like that. I'm going to get some stainless, but I don't have any today, and this is all I could get locally, so we'll make do. We've got to go down to 1/4 inch because that's the size of pipe thread that we use with the 3/8 AN fittings. We've got to come out of the top of the compressor and put a nice gradual 90 in there. We've got to be a little more careful with this stuff because, of course, 3/8 is quite a bit smaller than the 1/2 inch. That is a good starting point. That looks to me like it's going to work pretty well. But we do need to get some sealant on these threads. I just kind of mocked things up. One thing you need to be careful of when you're doing anything with pipe thread, Teflon tape, you want to wrap the Teflon tape so that it is being wrapped tighter as the fitting tightens. So you'll see here, we're going to wrap it in this direction. so that the as we tighten the fitting, it actually tightens the Teflon tape. If you don't do that, as you tighten the fitting, the Teflon tape will actually unwind, and then it gets all balled up and it doesn't seal properly. Snug up the adapter with the pipe wrench, a normal wrench on the elbow. We'll give it a little snug up. We've got the air line hooked up to the top of the compressor. This is the outlet of the air compressor tank. It's a nice heavy duty, well-made hose. I had this made up back when I first got the compressor. It's still in good shape. However, it only has 3/8 thread on the outlet of it, and of course the condensate trap that I want to hang on the wall uses 1/2 inch. So we're going to have to put an adapter in here. Again, it's galvanized because that's all I can get locally. I will pick up stainless and we'll replace these fittings at a future date. The microphone might be picking up some hissing here, and that's just the this bleed back on the air pressure switch. No big deal. I'm not worried about that. We aren't getting any other leakage going from any of the fittings that I've put in. Everything feels good. The main supply is getting warm, but we haven't got any warmth in this outlet yet. Not that we've turned the fan on, because we still have to do that. What we've got here is we've got comes out of the compressor head down in the bottom of this heat exchanger. Comes out of the heat exchanger, comes around back into the top of the condensate trap. We've got our condensate trap that we can open. Comes out of the condensate trap, goes down into the top of the compressor. And again, I'm not worried about that hissing. Comes out of the compressor on this nice big heavy hose, up to another condensate trap that has a ball valve on it and a pressure regulator, and this will be our final output. The last thing that we have to do for this little project is some wiring. Let me grab the 12-volt power supply and we'll figure out what we're going to do to connect that up. I've got the fan wired up. It was pretty simple. The power supply came with this nice little dongle with a round barrel plug. That's the other end of it. And we plug them in. And you kind of hear it making a weird, I don't know if that's picking up or not, it's just kind of like pulsing. And then it ramps up. It's moving lots of air. I'm quite happy with how much air that's moving. And plus the air is moving this way, so it's blowing over this main supply tube. This tube does get a little warm, which isn't surprising. And we'll have to make sure there's a wiring and the outlet hose don't end up coming in contact with it. But so far I haven't felt any heat running on the outlet of this radiator at all. This is ice cold over here. I only have it up to, I don't know, 20 psi at this point, just to run it a little bit. I'll charge it up here a bit more and we'll see how it does temperature-wise. Well guys, I think we're going to call that mostly a success. The pressure switch here is still leaking. I don't know what the heck's going on there. I'm thinking maybe my pressure switch is gone. This compressor is, after all, I don't know, almost 25 years old. So losing a pressure switch wouldn't necessarily surprise me. The outlet of this chiller is absolutely, like, these pipes are ice. There's no heat in this at all. Definitely, well, this is cooled off now, but up here at the top, this pipe is warm. Where the fan has been blowing through, it is lukewarm. And yeah, I'm feeling the hey, the hissing's stopping. When this was running at full bore, the first elbow here, second elbow, was getting a little bit warm, but like just enough warm that you could tell that it was not the ambient cold. At this end it was cold. All of these pipes are staying nice and cold. Now I've only charged this up one cycle and I haven't run any air tools off of it, that kind of thing. Anyway, the acid test will be using the sandblasting cabinet or the plasma cutter that I'm going to be setting up in the next couple of weeks. So I think we'll call this one a success. Thanks a lot for stopping by, checking out this video. Greatly appreciated. If you've gotten this far, can I get you to hit that thumb up button? Give me a like. If you like what you're seeing here on Doug's Messy Garage, can you hit that subscribe button? And maybe ring that bell icon so you get notified when I put new content out, which pretty much is every Sunday. We'll catch you in the next mess. Thanks a lot for watching.